Good evening. Hope you are all doing well, and Shavuos was beautiful. We're learning Maseches Yevamos Daf Tzadi Beis. We're starting about 8 lines up from the bottom on Tzadi Aleph Amud Beis at the words Rav Papa. Over the course of the last Amud, we were debunking this argument of my avidle. What else should she have done? She married al pi halacha, and now you're going to slap her on the wrist and tell her that you're going to whatever the consequences were for what she did. So now, after all of these strong pushes against this idea that really there's always something to do, Rav Papa says the Gemara Savar Lemeh Bar Uvda. He wanted to paskin in a particular case using the principle of B'mai Havale Lemeh Bar. He wanted to. So then they said back to him, Amar Le Rav Huna B'Rid Rav Yoshua Rav Papa. You can't do that. Vatanya Kol Hani Masnaisa. What about all the cases that we brought above on Tzadi Aleph Amud Beis, which tried to debunk with a whole slew of questions? That maybe we should not have such a principle of my Havale Lemeh Bar. The Gemara says, Amar Le V'Lav Shaninu. Weren't all of these cases answered up? We answered all the cases. Remember the case of the get. Well, you should read the get. You should be responsible for what you're doing. So says the Gemara, in the name of Rav Papa, no, all of these cases were answered. So then Rav, who was he talking to? Rav Huna B'Rid Rav Yoshua pushed back and said, Amar Le, ve'ashinuye leiku v'lismoch. Are you really ready? Are you really ready to say that because there were answers to these questions, that therefore you're going to pass in a case lakula based on the principle of my havale lemeva, that she had no choice? Says the Gemara, 3 lines from the bottom, Tzadi Aleph Amud Beis, upasak. In fact, he decided to stop with this line of reasoning, and therefore he did not pass in lakula in this case. Amar Rav Ashi, ulakala lo chayshinan. Rav Ashi says, we are not nervous about a kol, about a rumor. Says Rashi. Rashi is the last 2 lines of Rashi. Dibra maskul ulakala lo chayshinan. Im niseis bebezdin va'achar kach yotza kol shabai lachai ulfanenu loba. The case where we say that we're not worried about rumors is a case where she married al pi bezdin, and then there's a rumor that her husband is alive, but we can't prove it. And says the Gemara lo chayshina. Says the Gemara hay kala. What rumor are we talking about? Yilema kala de basar nisuin. If you want to say that the rumor that we're talking about started after she was already married to another man, we already learned this principle and therefore don't need Rav Ashi's line. Rav Ashi already said it one time to Rav Ashi, top of Tzadi Beis Amud Aleph, called Kala de Basar Nisuin Lo Chayshina. So therefore says the Gemara, no, that's not correct. We did have what to be concerned about, and we needed Rav Ashi to repeat himself. Ma'u de tema, hol ve'asai lebeidina v'sharinan kekala de kami nisuin dami v'titzar. We said that maybe because it was done al pi bezdin and they were allowed, that's similar to a kol of pre-marriage, and therefore it should be forbidden. Kamash Malon, that we don't hold that way. So the Gemara therefore concludes on the top of Tzadi Beis Amud Aleph at the 2 dots, 3 lines down, that we are not worried about rumors of this husband being alive unless he shows up like begufo. He has to actually physically be. The rumors don't matter at that point. If a woman remarries al pi bezdin, if she marries in a rabbinical court or with their approval, the rumors of her husband's existence are not relevant. Only if he actually shows up. Even if Eidim show up, seemingly, we don't care. We ignore those Eidim because she married al pi bezdin. That's
only if she's already married, not
correct.
before.
Correct. If the rumors start before she gets married, then we pause the marriage until we investigate further. But if she's already married al pi bezdin, unless that guy shows up standing on his own 2 feet, we don't care. We assume the marriage of her with her second husband, her new husband, is correct. Says the Gemara at the new 2 dots, Nises al pi bezdin, we said Teitse and without a korban. And says the Gemara that if she marries according to bezdin and then the husband shows up, she needs to get divorced and no korban. Says the Gemara, Omar Ziri Leisa lemas nisan. It must be that we have a shita not like our Mishnah, Midatani be medrasha, because something was taught in the base medrash. Datani be medrasha. Horu Bezdin Sheshaka Chama. Let's say that in Bezdin it was very cloudy out, and the Chachamim had to paskin what time Shabbos was over. We know from Maseches Shabbos that Shabbos is over when we see 3 stars that are Benonios, 3 medium-sized stars. That's we were just discussing before with Rabbi Shechter. When can you say Kiddush Levana? So we paskin in America like Rav Moshe and Rav Moshe's Svara that once you hit 50 minutes, it doesn't get any darker, and therefore we consider that to be Tzeisak Kocham. Pretty much that's how we hold almost across the boards. There are exceptions. Sometimes if a person is in a minyan and they want to say Sfira and it's 35 minutes, okay, there are kulas. In Eretz Yisrael, 35 minutes is Tzeisak Kocham. The sun sets faster. I believe the way that it works is the sun sets faster near the equator. because where we are, for example, we're north of the equator. So our vision of the sun seems like the sun is arcing down a little bit. It's not actually true. It's just that the sun is off-centered and moving perfectly straight. So when you're directly on the equator, the sun just dips straight down without your perception of an arc. And therefore, in Eretz Yisrael, it doesn't get any darker than 35 minutes. And Seis HaKochav is significantly earlier. Throughout the United States, there, of course, will be differences based on how far you are from the equator, but we do not make such distinctions. You would have to be an exceedingly knowledgeable person based on your latitude and longitude. We don't do that. 50 minutes is the general minhag. There are other shols and other poskim who hold differently. 42 minutes is a shita, but by and large, broadly speaking, the yeshiva world does not hold of that. The yeshiva world in general holds of 50 minutes. So what happened here? It's cloudy out. They didn't have clocks. And even if they had a sundial back in the day, there was no sun. They didn't know what time it was. So it says the Gemara 6-7 lines down. Bezdin, they gave up psak sheshaka chama, and then people started doing malacha soon after because Shabbos is over. And then ulevasov, the clouds cleared up and the sun came out. Still Shabbos. Says the Gemara, Ein zu hora. That's not a psak. That's a tos, elatos. If the Chachamim were of the opinion that it was dark out and they were wrong, then they're wrong. That's not, you paskin in Bezdin. That's not paskin in Bezdin. You're wrong. It's a tos. So there's a difference, in a very critical hakira. There's a difference between saying, I paskin a shaila, and therefore the halachic reality will ensue, versus saying, I'm telling you that it's dark out, but the Chachamim were just push it wrong. They couldn't see. They made a guess and they were wrong. They looked up. They're like, looks pretty dark. And they were wrong. So this is a big distinction. For Rav Nachman Amar, no. What? Well, that's part of our conversation right now, because remember what our Mishnah said is that Nisei Salpi Bezdin Teitze below Korban. So that's part of what we're talking about. If it's Hora'ah, so then then the Bezdin has to bring. If it's not a Hora'ah and it's a Tos, then you did a Shogeg. And you need to bring a korban as an individual. And we're going to discuss that in detail. So then the Gemara says, Rav Nachman Amar, no, horahi, even though the facts on the ground were wrong, it's still considered hora. Amar Rav Nachman Teda de horahi, I can prove to you that it's actually a hora, that it's a psak, even though it was not factual. Tebechola Torah kula, eid echad lo mehemen. In general, in halacha, when we're talking about arayos, eid echad is insufficient. However, v'hacha here by iguna mehemen, my taima, it must be lab mishum de horahi. Okay, we made a psak. Yes, the husband showed up afterwards, but we made a psak. We made a psak, so therefore it's hora. The rules of accepting one aid is not a tos. That's a halachic mitzias. So if a bezdin says, "Where mishum iguna kila barabanan," you're allowed to get married al pi eid echad. Your husband's been missing a long time, whatever the details are. That's a hora, and therefore we would treat the incorrect psak on bezdin's error, not on the woman's error. And Omar Rava, I disagree with you. Teda de tos. So you need to know that that's not a case of hora. That's a case of tos. The ilu horu bezdin. Let's say a bezdin gave a psak, and they gave a psak that the chaylev and the dam was mutter. And then v'hadar chazu taima le'isur. They changed their reasoning, and then it was asur again. Ki hadre v'amre le'hatera. If they then circle back to their first psak of mutter, lo mashkechinan be. That's the world of hora. However, v'ilu hecha de'asa eid echad sharina. If based on one aid we allowed this woman to remarry, and asu trei asarna, and two aidim come along and say no, he's actually alive and she'd be forbidden. Ki hadar asa eid achrina sharinan la. We would still again allow her to remarry with yet another aid. My taima lav mishum detosu, because obviously somebody made a mistake. But after Belazar suffered the tosu, that our case must be a case of tos when they paskined as they did that she can remarry because the husband showed up. The Tanya Rabbi Eliezer Omer Yikov Hadine Sahar. This is a well-known phrase, and it really means that we should be digging out the halacha from the mountain. In other words, we should have investigated very, very clearly the tabichatas shmeina. You should bring a chatas, not just a chatas, but a fat chatas, which is just kind of some hyperbolic language of, yeah, you need to be bringing the korban. We don't care if the chatas is fat, it doesn't matter, but we're just being dramatic. Yikov adin sahar, and if we find out that in fact the husband's alive, then what does she need to do? She needs to bring a korban, because it was a shogeg, which means that it was a tos. So it says the Gemara, Iamra bishlama de tosu, if you say that the Bezdin allowed her to get married really was a tos, even though they relied on the halachic principle of Eid Echad, But mishum hachi masya korban. The reason she brings a korban is because the decision of the bezdin was a taos, and she did an iser deoraisa b'shogeg. She slept with a man that she should not have slept with, her new husband. That makes perfect sense. Eliyamras deorahi. But if you want to say that really it was a hora'ah, that the psak for her to remarry was a psak bezdin, and not a mistake, but a psak bezdin, then amay masya korban. Then why would she bring a korban? If it's a hora'ah and they made a mistake, they bring a korban, not her. If bezdin makes a mistake in psak, they are the ones responsible. Elamai, it must be that that really she's the one who made the error in that she slept with this man, unbeknownst to her, it was usher. She was following not the psak, but the taos of bezdin. Therefore, she brings a korban. Says the Gemara, the Dilma, maybe that's not pshat in the Brisa. Maybe the reason why the Brisa says v'tabi chata shmeina is because the Dilma kasav Rabbi Eliezer yachid she'asa b'ras bezdin chayiv. Maybe he holds a different din that if an individual listens to a horas bezdin and they were wrong, that they're chayiv. Says the Gemara, that makes no sense because the Brisa in which Rabbi Eliezer says that that she has to bring a korban is preceded by the following words: "In Cain, my yikov adin asar." What are you investigating? If you hold that a person, an individual who listens to bezdin and bezdin's wrong has to bring a korban, then why does it say yikov adin asar in the brisa? Elamai, it must not be. Horua bezdin. What does it say? It said horua bezdin linaset. So therefore, the din is that we treat it like a taos, and that's how we paskin. It's just really interesting to think about that when we view a psak from bezdin and they were factually incorrect, that's not called a psak. It's not called a psak. It's different. If they made a psak and their psak was wrong in halachic terms, not in reality terms, but in halachic terms, that's on them. That's a hurrah. But if they say that the sun has set and therefore you can be mechal Shabbos, or therefore Shabbos is over, no, that's a toast. And then the individuals are chayiv to bring a korban. That brings us to the two dots halfway down on Tzadi Beis Amud Aleph. We'll be going until about 8-9 lines from the bottom of Tzadi Beis Amud Beis. And then we will pick up tomorrow night. Says the Gemara that my kilkala, we said that, Horua Bezdin Lihinase. Bezdin said that she was allowed to get married, and then the Mishnah had said that she was Mikalkelas. So says the Gemara, my kilkala, what did she do wrong? Machlokes in the Amoraim, Rabbi Eliezer, should be Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Eliezer was not an Amora that we are regularly quoting. Rabbi Elazar is, and Rabbi Elazar was also just one generation later than the next person quoted, which makes a lot of sense. Rabbi Elazar Omer Zinsa. It means that she got permission to remarry, and then she slept with someone who she wasn't married to, just regular Tashma Shamito, that was Aser. And Rabbi Yochanan Omar, no, my kilkala, it means that an incorrect marriage, Almana Lekoin Gadol and Grusha Lechalutza Lekoin Hedjot. And within this machlokas, each of them have different perspectives. Manda Amar Zinsa, according to the one who says that the kilkal that she did is that she slept with someone outside of wedlock, Kol Shekain Almana Lekoin Gadol, all the more so if she got married in a marriage that was Aser, for sure. Then that would for sure be considered a kilkul. However, Manda Amar Almana Lekoin Gadol, according to the Shita that holds that what she did wrong is that she got married to someone that she wasn't supposed to get married to. So then maybe the diuk should be aval zin solo, that if she does nus, that's not considered a kilkul. Says the Gemara, my taima, why would we make such a distinction? And the words in the Gemara are easy to translate literally, but difficult to understand conceptually. And that is as follows, my taima. And says the Gemara, because the Amra, atunhu deshavisin penuya. The woman would say to Bezdin, you're the ones who made me a penuya. So this is a little difficult to understand the distinction that we just made, that yes, it would be considered kilkul if she married an almana, if an almana married a kohen gadol, but it would not be, the znus would not be considered kilkul. But basically the Gemara says, and the Rishonim explain this as well, Rashi in particular explains this here, that when we say that yes, you're allowed to remarry, so it's only znus if she remarries incorrectly. But if she doesn't remarry incorrectly and she's just intimate with someone out of wedlock, so then that's not something that which would be considered a kilkul. Where 3 lines before the wide lines on Tzadi Beis Amud Aleph, Tanya Kavase de Rav Yochanan, this brisa matches the shita of Rav Yochanan. Rav Yochanan was of the opinion that the kilkul that took place in our Mishnah is that this woman married someone she shouldn't have, such as Almana Lekoin Gadol and Grusha V'Chalutza Lekoin Hedjot. So it says the Gemara like Rav Yochanan, Tanya Kavase de Rav Yochanan Harua Bezdin Linase V'Halcha V'Kilkala, that if a woman got permission from Bezdin to remarry, her husband went out of town, never came home, and whatever the aegis was, past the threshold of integrity, and therefore she's not allowed to remarry. Oh, then they said, no, now you can remarry. We found out that your husband's really not alive. And then v'halcha b'kilkula. How does this brisa define kilkul? Just like Rabbi Yochanan. What does it say? Kigon almana lekohen gadol and grusha v'chalutza lekohen hajod. In such a case, chayeves b'korban al kol bia ubia divi Rebbe Lazar. For every episode of intercourse between those two people, she would be chayev a new korban. That's a pretty significant halachic issue, that every episode of Tashmish Shemitah is an Isser D'Oraisa. That's the Shita Rebbe Lazar in this brisa. The Chachamim Omrim Korban Echad Al Hakol. It's considered one major flaw for all the moments of intimacy between her and her Aser husband. It's only one korban. But for as much as it's true that the Chachamim say it's only one korban for all of the experiences of intercourse between this husband and wife, they are modeh modim Chachamim Rebbe Lazar Shim Nises LeChamisha Bnei Adam Shechayves BeKorban Al Kol Echad BeEchad Ho Legufan Muchlaken. This gets into a lamdasha idea that we're not going to spend time on, but even according to the one who says that your one error of marrying this husband almana lekohen gadol, and therefore all of the moments of intimacy are captured with one korban, but it's not true by gufan muchlakin, by different husbands. So this gets into some of the lumdus of how we separate out korbanos. We've had sugyas like this throughout Shas, but bekitzer over here, if we had to paint a picture, it seems that that the Chachamim hold that we require gufin muchlakin, different human beings, different people, for there to be generating different korbanos. So if she's married to one man and they're intimate 20 times over the course of their marriage, so he says that's not gufin muchlakin, that's her sleeping with one man, one korban. Masha'en Kain, if she married one guy and he died and married different guys, if five guys, five korbanos. So he's a gufin muchlakin personality. Masha'en Kain, the Shita Rabbi Elazar, is not about gufin muchlakin, but it's about episodes. It's not about people, it's about episodes. So these are some of the chakiras that you'll find in the poskim and in the achron. New Mishnah, 2/3 of the way down on Tzadi Beis. Very first, your husband died. Once her husband died, she has a kid. So there's no yibum, but your husband died. Right? She has a kid still. And then when say someone who wasn't her yavam because her son was alive. So then your son died first, and then your husband, a huge nafkamina. So let's take moving his land, you want to father-son trip, and they both died. However, we don't know the order in which they died. When the aegis came in that the father died first and then the son. And if the father died first, then there's no yibum when the father dies because the son is alive. So she married a Shmerel. Really, the son died first. And then when the husband dies, she's subject to the laws of Nigul. So now she's married to someone that she's not allowed to be married to because there really was a zikas Nigul between Reuven and Shimon, but she's currently married to Shmerel based on the bad data.
But once she has a kid, doesn't that?
Not if the husband dies after. Husband dies after this. He's considered having no child. The din is adopted. When Reuven died, his son had already died. So if that's true, then Yibum kicks in. So now she's married to the wrong guy. It was done with well intended, but it's still awesome. What does the Gemara say? It takes a she has to get divorced from Shmerel, and the kids that are born initially and later are mamzer. This line makes no sense right now. We'll understand it when we get to the Gemara. What does it mean, kids before? First husband's dead. What do you mean, kids before, born earlier and later? We'll see what this means, but that's case number 1 in the Mishnah. Third line of the new Mishnah, let's talk about a similar case. Amrullah, her husband and son went out of town. If they first said meis b'neich, ve'achar kach meis ba'aleich, if the son died and the husband died, v'nisiyah. The husband died, the husband had no children. That's a big problem. If really Reuven died first and the son was still alive and then the son died, she can't marry Shimon. That's her brother. So it's a huge problem. Now it's a lot of people, but really it turned out to be someone she's not allowed to marry. So it's true that she has to get divorced from. She's not allowed to be married to him. And this language that we don't know what it means. The child from before and after. Let's say that they said to her, your husband died, and then Benise she remarries. Actually, we made a mistake. He was alive when you got married, but he died right after you got married. So then, Tate she married someone as an Ashes. She's not allowed to do that. She has to get divorced. Vlad Rishon Mamzer, Achron Eno Mamzer. This is where the line actually makes sense. If she had a kid with a new husband while her husband was still alive, that kid's a mamzer. But if she had a subsequent child after the husband died, she's no longer an Eshes Ish because her first husband died, and therefore the Acharon is Eino mamzer. She is, but the child is not a mamzer. She has to get divorced, no question about it. So the timeline works like this. Information comes in that her husband dies, let's say January 1st of January, let's say in the year 2021. And then she remarries in 2022. In 2022, she gets pregnant and has a kid right away. So 9 months later, let's say September of 2022, she has a kid. And then someone comes, 5 months later, she one of the kids was born while her first husband was still alive. She didn't know that. She's a master, she's a strong. She had that first kid, unbeknownst to her. She was still married to the pastor. Yes, it's awesome. But because the husband initially, her first husband is now dead, her second child is not a mountain. She's from the same guy. Got pregnant from the same guy. I'm like amazed at how they keep in these cases. It's like so detailed, but it's amazing. It's a good question, but my understanding of it is that the whole marriage is just a marriage. She got married to this. I wonder if she's allowed to divorce and remarry. That's possible. But no, but then it's also the Bala. Yeah, it should be also the Bala. Right, I presume so, based on the context of the Mishnah. Also, like Mamzerus doesn't care what you knew about the first husband, but maybe the same thing should be true. Asur l'bala, asur l'bo. It's got the same din. You're an Ashes Ish. They said that her husband died and she got halachically engaged. And she's about to walk down the aisle, the dramatic scene. Wait, I'm actually still alive. And then the halacha is muteres not so. No problem. She's allowed to break off the engagement with husband number 2 and go back and stay married to husband number 1. And even if the second husband, really the betrothal husband, even if he provides her with a get, she is not going to be considered psula from kahuna because all that has transpired is halachic engagement. There was no intimacy at all. She did not have tashmish with this person. As Sudara Shagalazar ben Basya, Isha Grisha be Isha, Lomi Ish Sheino Isha. Here it's below me Ish Sheino Isha. She wasn't actually with a man that wasn't her husband. She was only engaged to that man. This is the drush of did. In this case, she gets it's important for them to be together because they didn't sleep together. As I've already highlighted, the Mishnah has this very strange language in the first couple of cases. It really makes no sense. I rishon my achron. Why did you say that the first child is a mamzer and the second child is not a mamzer? That doesn't make any sense. Ilema rishon lifnei shmua, ve'achron la'achar shmua. If you want to say that it was before she had heard that her husband and or son died in the order, it doesn't matter because from Maisa, she married someone that's usher to her. Listening, havlad mamzer, just call it. End of the day, they're equal mamzer. Case that was describing. She was married to man number one. He disappears, and then she gets married. Based on halachic, we find she's married and has a kid, and then she has another kid, and we find out that the husband, her first husband, died between the first two kids. The first kid, Taka, is a mamzer, Rishon mamzer. Rishon mamzer, Vachon Bein mamzer. Therefore, it's not Risha. Rishon Vachon mamzer. Symmetry of the Mishnah, even though halachic is completely irrelevant. The first here, the shiur. And therefore, on her husband was dead and she got married. Any thoughts on that? Yeah.
Okay, but it's more than a Maseches because
Oh,
it's
100%.
right. So that happened. Obviously, you wanted to get her pregnant. So maybe
No idea. Great question. This application. The more I think about it, the more I'm agreeing with you. But yeah, I'm cautious because I love it. But the Akiva. That doesn't bother me if it's actually the case, but I don't think that's the measure.
I agree.
I think Rabbi Akiva, we're going to see the line on the top of the next number. The Rabbi Akiva was of the Chayve Lav and generated Mav. There's nothing to do with Play-Doh. Do a time for Shemitah. So I think you're right. I think it would be based on the based on the assumption. Right now, it says the Gemara Tana Rabbanan Zudiva Rabbi Akiva. What does Rabbi Akiva hold? Shaya Omer. Ein kedushin tofsin b'chayve lavin. He holds that kedushin is not tofes b'chayve lavin, and that's why the child would be a mamzer. Chachamim omrim, and they say it very strict. Sweeping b'chayve lavin. Because they're the residents, you're not allowed to marry them, and the kedushin is not tofes. Chachamim have this translation. Why don't the Chachamim just say "V'lema ein mamzer b'chayve lavin"? You really argue. It says the Gemara, no. Hi Tana, Hach Tana de Rabbi Akiva. This is actually a Tana who holds like a different sheet of Rabbi Akiva who holds. We saw this version of Rabbi Akiva earlier. This version of Rabbi Akiva says that when there is chayve lav de she'er, only when there is however, mechayve lav and grede, when we talk about a chiyuv lav on its own, lo have mamzer. So what the Gemara was doing by this strange answer to Chachamim was piquing our interest to take it a little further to recognize that these are the machlokas is really a little bit different. It's not just about the mamzer in the case of it's also to recognize.
Rav, in the name of Rav, Minayin she'ein kedushin toksin b'Yevama. How do we know that there is no kedushin as it relates to a Yevama? That means, and the halacha is you want to try it and get engaged, it doesn't work. Ne'emar, lo si- Okay, what's the drasha? Lo tehei bo havaya l'zar. She cannot have any havaya, any kedushin to a zar at all. It doesn't work. However, much as Rav did learn the pasuk that way, Shmuel did not. Says the Gemara 3 lines. Shmuel Amar, ba'ani yusenu tricha get. What does ba'ani yusenu mean? Take a look at a beautiful Rashi and remember who we're talking about. Shmuel was of the greatest of the Amoraim, and look what Rashi says about him. Mitoch anius da'atenu she'ein anu yodim pirush hamikra. Because we're so lowly in our understanding that we don't know what pshat in the pasuk is. Look back at the pasuk on line 2. When it says lo sihya eshes hamesa chutza v'ish star, Rav had no problem darshaning the way he did. What about Shmuel? On line 4 it says misafkale v'Shmuel. Does the pasuk mean hi lo sihya eshes hames? Does that mean ilelavu da'asa to say that there's an iser to be with the shomeres yavam, or idelo tapse v'kedushin v'da'as? Or that no. What pshat in the pasuk was? Pretty sad thing. If that's what we want to Shmuel. Anyways, Amar le Rab, and therefore, by the way, the therefore here is that she needs a divorce. Is that if somebody does get engaged to Shomer Yavam, according to Rav says there's no tefisa execution of the Shomer Yavam, and therefore you can try and get engaged all the time. It doesn't matter. It doesn't work. It's money mashur. It doesn't happen. Mashain can, according to Shmuel, that she needs to get. And then Omar le Rav Mori Bar Rocha le Rav Ashi. Hachi Omar Aneimar. Aneimar was of the opinion. Halacha kivasi de Shmuel. Let's say 25 years, whatever it's on. 100 years older, significant amount. Throughout that period of time, they all seem to have been of the opinion of Shmuel that if a person does get engaged to a shomeres yavam, halacha is that the suffix she needs to get. We assume that it's possible that the kedushin work. Says Ravashi, Ravashi, Hashta the Amar Aneimar halacha ilchasa kavasi de Shmuel. If now that we say that the halacha is like Shmuel, that there does need to be a get in a case where someone tries to get engaged to a shomeres yavam, if that's true, imhaya yevama kohen. This is yevama with a mapike yevama. If her yavam was a kohen, and then someone tried to get engaged to her, so cholet lavasharyale, that she can get chalitza and marry this guy that she just got betrothed to, even though she shouldn't have done so. She should then all is well and good. Says the Gemara, it's great. Iskar, you're going to reward this ridiculousness. She's asura to be. You're going to see that this person is being rewarded for having violated halacha. I use this phrase in my house all the time with my children. Nope, clothing is stuff. Can't let you get away with it. Well, I already scratched the car, so can I get another car? Nope, clothing, you're not allowed to do that. So the Gemara is saying over here, you're not allowed to play halacha. As I first gave you this wild stuff about Zoom versus on Shabbos. This all peaked during Zoom during the COVID. He said if a family tells you that yeah, it's a Shabbos bris, no, definitely in the morning at 8. That's our topic. Says, I'm sorry, we need to. Anyways, the Gemara doesn't like this possibility. Oh, relax. Relax. Right. We have to change. Alice, person engaged to, he gave her a divorce. Now some are shady get then, but we don't. The second guy came over. I read. Allow for certain manipulate halacha. about a third of the way down. Amar Rav Gidol, Amar Rav Chia Bar Yosef, Amar Rav. Yevama, Kedushin Ein Ba, Nisuin Yesh Ba. Look at this nuancing. There is Kedushin, which is problematic, but you can't halachically get married. Kedushin Yesh. Oh, thank you. I was reading I don't know what I was reading. It doesn't make sense either way. Says the Gemara, Kedushin Ein Ba. It's not possible. Obviously, this is very confusing. How do you have Nisuin without Kedushin? What does the Gemara mean? What's the habit? The Gemara says, what are you talking about? Kedushin Ein Ba, Nisuin Ein Ba. How do you Nisuin Nami Ein Ba? How do you have one without the other? You can't skip step one. I mean, technically, you can skip step one, but it doesn't really work. So the Gemara, you're right. Ema Kedushin Nisuin Ein Ba. You're right. Really, what I meant is that when it comes to a Yevama, that there isn't Kedushin and there isn't Nisuin. People say, some say, no, that's you're looking at it a little bit too literal. We're not just talking about actual halachic merit. Says the Gemara, Nisuin Yesh Ba. When we say that there is Nisuin, we don't mean it's like the first presentation. There's no Kedushin and Kedushin Ein Ba Nisuin Yesh Ba. We are in fact not fit on this idea. I don't know how it's executed. If they behave like they're married, because in Michlafa, Be'isha Shahalach Baila L'Medina Sayyam. The Gemara is concerned about the similarity of cases of this case of the Shomeres Yavam. She really does have one husband. Shimona should be her husband. Meanwhile, she has a relationship with another guy outside of the family, Shmerel, and that is very similar to the case of Isha Shahalach. Shimon in both cases, and therefore, in such a case, it would require exam. We're going to stop right here at Amar Rav Yanai. We're going to be doing live Zoom, regular time 8:40. I'm coming back Thursday and Thursday.